I on this new feature on YouTube. So I just wanted to test it out and see what's up with that. Just in the middle of some work here, but just thought I'd stop and test this, new feature, which basically allows you to go live in the shorts feed, which I think is super cool. I might try to see if I can stream it from my computer and not have to do it from my phone. But what's up, everybody? Whether you're watching this now or later in the feed, I'm not really sure. Like, again, just testing this feature out, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the future of digital collectibles and Web3 games. So, with that being said, I had some good videos here, or a video I just released yesterday, just responding to Cavell Anderson about his video. Oh, it shows I'm live. Okay, so here it is. Okay, all right, that's pretty cool. It shows I'm live on my channel as well. So sorry about that. Got distracted. So yeah, I just launched a video responding to Cavell Anderson and wanted to hit that on the head a little bit more. So I just thought I would talk about kind of the macro big picture where I see digital collectibles going and Web3 games going as well. A lot of people I think that are either in Web 2.5 camp versus Web 3. I don't think it's like versus. I think it's, a Web 2.5 to me is simply a bridge. Um, is a bridge to Web3 to some regard. I do think platforms, that do Web 2.5 there's some platforms I think out there that could do that really well. But I really do think the future is going to be where 2.5 bridges to Web 3, or you just have mechanisms, which I mentioned a couple years ago in terms of like, look at IMX, they're building Passport. And that's just going to make it easy for mainstream users to click to sign on using Web3, just using a Gmail account. In each platform out there, I think it's called like Magic Link or something like that, that does the same thing as well. We've seen this on Flowchain on some of those projects. They have the Dapper wallet. There's a lot of like these good wallets that like you don't need to know anything about Web3 in order to transact. And games that are already doing this as well. If we look at Dr. Disrespect's game, you can actually sign into the game without having a wallet. They have a self custody wallet, and it shows you the address, and you're able to actually transfer out of that wallet if you want to. Now, that's where the future is, in my opinion. So, good platforms that build good bridges, I think, are going to be the future. And we're seeing that in the East. Look at China, look at Asia, Korea, Japan, they're all integrating or they're all having like these white papers that have interoperability in Web3 in them in their documents. And that's where they're going to go with it. We're already seeing this on the game level, even the platforms that are based in some of these these geolocations. We're seeing that from that perspective as well. And if you zoom back, you see Singapore, which is, champions kind of that interoperable style of ethos, right? And I think other platforms are going to be doing the same thing, and I think that's going to push the West a little bit forward in a good way, in that direction. So that's where I think things are going to go. Just because especially with AI is going to scale so quickly. If you look at AI and what AI is doing in terms of digital platforms, in terms of gaming experiences, in terms of metaverse. You saw Zuckerberg, Lex Friedman get on their headsets, those super high realistic avatars. Those were pretty major. I think people finally, after all this time, had an aha moment like, wow, this could really be something here in the metaverse. But fast forward a little bit more when AI scales, there's going to be so much user generated content. There's going to be so much scaling happen on the graphic side, the user side, the UGC side. Every single like touch point is going to have AI scaling all those experiences. And I think that in the future, you'll have like I'm already seeing like a bunch of little metaverse experiences pop up. So I think it's a matter of time before what we see is you'll need to have interoperable assets going back and forth and communicating to each other. And I'm seeing that on the blockchain level as well. Like, you can bridge certain NFTs to certain blockchains. But yeah, I think interoperability at multiple levels this is where the natural organic progression is going to go. Now, I will say that we're early. I've always said that I thought we're early, and we still are. A lot of developers building really neat tools out there, like account abstraction is still coming out on like ETH layer one, for example. And Flowchain already has that integrated on their platform, but they've been kind of boasting about that feature. So yeah, it is in terms of like the dev side of things. We're early for sure. So it's not like I'm saying this is all going to happen now, but I do see a future where organically, naturally, the natural progression of where this is going is where we're going to have to see. Like, I think a lot of platforms and a lot of companies, and especially in the East, are going to push for this kind of open, decentralized, like interoperable metaverse. And I think that's where brands are going to have more exposure as well. Like, imagine your IP, that you're able to be in multiple different experiences just because and you just have one IP, like one NFT, and that represents your brand across multiple experiences. And so that's why I think that this is where brands are going to go. We're already seeing it right now in space. We're seeing, DC, Disney, they're already dropping on multiple different blockchains and multiple different platforms, and they kind of understand this. They know that they need to have their IP like out there in different formats for, obviously the collectors for sure. But if you look at it from another perspective in terms of like branding, they know that they're going to get different exposure, more users across different blockchains and different experiences out there, different formats. And that's kind of like from a branding and marketing perspective, that's really good. And I think that's where a lot of projects will go. And when I look at gaming, gaming is also mentioned in a lot of these. Like if you look at Japan, you look at Korea, even now Hong Kong, which is obviously has the graces of like China behind it, Hong Kong. They're all looking at this in terms of what metaverse is. Is they look at it with gaming integrated with immersive experiences. So that's where I see all this being merged into kind of one, right? Sorry, getting a lot of notifications on my phone. I have to click do not disturb. I'm getting like all these tweets popping up. Whew, that was a lot of notifications. But anyways, they're talking about like the games being associated with the metaverse. And I looked at the leaked documents recently from Xbox acquiring Activision Blizzard, and in their documents, their leaked documents, they're like, "Hey, we're actually like gaming has already been a metaverse. It's like a terribly like today's metaverses have like terrible low graphics, but we've been doing metaverse for like 30 years in gaming, and I would agree with that. I think that when you look at what's happening in gaming and what has happened, you look at Roblox too. Like those are all like connected, shared experiences, and that's what kind of a metaverse is. And I think that again, I think Roblox actually integrated Ripple, like Ripple payments or something like that, like today, which is pretty crazy too. But anyways, aside from that point, I think we will see like that. My point being is we'll see blockchain integrated at a further level than what we're seeing now. You look at literally Roblox today integrating Ripple payments or whatever. Um, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of like just payments. I think there be a future where there's going to be so much UGC or user generated content that a lot of these platforms are going to have to verify somehow, some way that this is the first version, or and it may say on a Web 2 side, but if you really want to like own it, then you're going to have to use blockchain, and that's where I think things are going to go, especially when you start having higher level integration, more age demographics. Roblox literally said that they're going to try to go after, I think it was like a billion players in their game. That's massive. That's a massive goal. And the only way to do that is you're going to have to hit multiple demographics. And people in the future, when they're having all these aha moments, they're seeing Mark Zuckerberg with high ultra realistic avatars, they're going to basically, in my opinion, at some point, they're going to demand more ownership. And I think that's again where blockchain has a lot of use case. And not only that, developers and game developers as well. When I look at game developers, a lot of them are in the free to play arena, and 80% basically, around 80% or so of all gaming revenue combined is from free to play games. So I do think free to play is like a zero sum type of game, um, no pun intended, but where essentially games have shelf lives typically. There's a couple outliers like Fortnite, of course, and like Call of Duty. But outside of that, like most free to play games are have shelf lives. And I think it's going to be a zero sum game where, like, when you integrate blockchain and royalties, that's actually a huge win for game developers and game studios long run. When it's a zero sum game, when everybody's trying to, have the most free option as possible and squeezing as much dollars from that free to play model as much as possible, you're going to run out of like runway in that kind of model. Like when everything's just going to be free. And the only way you can get around that is peer-to-peer transactions using royalties, and I think that's where the future is as well. So again, that's credit to blockchain, what's possible on chain with the royalties and perpetuity on chain. So that's that is just macro, right? And that's where I see, even like platforms like Vivi and these digital collectible apps is, you're going to see a future where obviously you'll need enforced royalties, but how do you the end user, like if you're gonna try to appeal to the mainstream and you're looking at gaming as a free to play model, what do you think is going to happen long run when consumers are demanding like lower cost for more affordable product that is also fun, right? So games are going to be the dominating factor in the macro, which is good. It's fine. I talked about this in my last video, is you want games to pop off because that means collectibles I think will benefit from that because it builds a culture around collectibles in the macro, right? You look at Pokemon TCG, you look at Pokemon the Game Boy games, you look at Pokemon Go. They have like all these cool experiences. They have entertainment, storytelling, all that. I think that all lends back to their collectibles, their merchandise, and all that, which is like their primary driver. So that's why I say like storytelling. I think and original IP is going to go a super long way in this space. Gary Vee's gotten a major head start. I mean, Gary Vee, I know we bashed him like early on in the community, but the guy was really far ahead on his time. When you look at it, when you zoom out and you, in hindsight, to see what Gary Vee was actually trying to tell us back then, it all makes kind of sense, right? Especially if you look at his Project V Friends. He was at New York Comic Con as well, and he partnered up, I saw, with Mattel and He Man, and had his own like Skeletor V Friends like collectible, which I thought was pretty cool. I was like, wow, that's actually pretty cute, pretty cool. But he's building his IP, man, and he's has storytelling around each character and has done a great job in terms of that. Now I think his is still in like that kind of experimental stage, and he's like obviously trying to scale that, and it's extremely hard to do when you're creating your own IP. But Gary Vee again has a head start. You look at McFarlane; he's obviously the Spawn. He's done that for years. So that's where I think a lot of like potential is like on the table. You look at even these NFT collections, like D Gods or whoever, is instead of the branding, I think the storytelling and the lore is the one of the most potent things like any NFT collection can do. um, so that's just my opinion on it. Pudgy Penguins is interesting because they have like the igloo and like gaming and like these sticky experiences. So I think Pudgy Penguins has done a pretty good job. There's a couple of other products I think are doing a good job. Azuki is also hiring. I think they just hired or like getting into Web3 gaming as well. Um, I mean, possibly that's where some of these digital collectible platforms could go too. Like we're seeing Crypt Toys with the like the Flappy Bird, type of game, like these little sticky experiences. They don't have to be much, right? When you're especially the older demographics, you're playing games that are just kind of like don't require a whole lot of thought necessarily. You can just play them and have fun. You can have fun with your characters you're collecting. That could be a lot of like where things go too. Like you're already seeing Pudgy Penguins take that model, and that could be a lot of potential there as well. So I don't know. That's like a macro picture. Like I know people are trying to like paint it like it's like Web 2.5 versus Web 0.3, when I don't think that's the case. I think it'll all just be one long term. Right now, yeah, it's like considered a niche, considered a bucket, and I do think in the future, like we still use those terms. Like Web 2.5, Web 3, when you're talking about how the product is out of the box, but eventually they're all going to just be connected Web3 experiences, in my opinion, just based on market demands, where the market's going to go. That's just my prediction. And hey, like, in terms of, I mean, this wouldn't be like my first prediction. That this would be like a long list of like other predictions I made about crypto, Web3, really tech in general. So I mean, yeah, I could be wrong, but I don't know. I have a pretty long track record of tech going in the right direction, where I think it's going to go, especially what has transpired thus far in Web3. we pretty much nailed it on the head here on the channel and made a lot of like really, really insanely accurate predictions, especially about the bigger brands getting into the space, getting on, obviously VV, but obviously we've also predicted these brands dropping on other platforms as well. We predicted that. We predicted that, it would look like almost like streaming in a sense, where you have multiple apps out there that do streaming, and that's kind of where the future will go. Is like you'll probably see like multiple successful platforms. um but in blockchain it's nicer because you do have royalties and all that stuff. But anyways, it's like a macro outlook on pictures, or my macro outlook on the picture of digital collectibles and gaming. I also wanted to test out this cool live feature here um on whatever this is called, YouTube. YouTube's like shorts feeds, and I wanted to see how much traction I could actually get. We got a couple of viewers. It shows up on my channel, but I'm curious if like I'll get replay viewers. And I accidentally invited a guest. I'm not sure if that's going to affect my picture overall here on the stream, because that's kind of funny if that's how it works. It'll be interesting to see if YouTube builds in tipping features like ice cream yum 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 or whatever, ice cream gang 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 gang. Here you go. I got a banana. Banana's so good. Yum yum. I don't know. We're just testing features out here. But yeah, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I see there's a few people out there here in the crowd. So thank you so much. Throw a thumbs up if you enjoyed the stream. If you want to see more of these like off the cuff streams, I'm down for it. I'm just literally streaming this from my phone. Again, let me know if you found this in the like shorts algorithm, or if you got a notification. I'm very curious about that. If you got a notification, or you're seeing this on my channel, or if you found it in the shorts feed. I'm very curious about that, because I'm trying to reach new audiences as well and push the space forward. So it is much appreciated if you subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and share this with a friend. And be sure to, yeah, like the video if you like the video. But I'll see you guys later. Peace.